Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Keep things timely as much as possible. So this is going to run for about an hour and a half. And then after that, between the last half hour after that, around 2:30 to 3, if anybody has questions, feel free. You can ask us questions, and Officer Moses will be glad to answer them. Really appreciate August 17th was the last time Officer Moses came in to see us, and he's kind enough to come in on his own time. Comes to us from the Hermitage Police Department, been on the force for around 24 years or so he's got a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge about our community here. So certainly appreciate him coming in and talking about this topic that he is very passionate about. He spends a lot of time attending regular trainings. He also does all the trainings and whatnot for the Hermitage school system for instances like this, where it may be a bad guy or an intruder in the building in one of those schools. So appreciate it. He's going to talk to us about active shooters. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Like Jerry said, my name is Officer Moses, Anthony Moses. I've been a police officer for 24 years. The last 5.5 years, I've been the school resource officer, community officer for the Hermitage School District. During the summer months, I go back to the road and work the road. And I have an intense interest, because I'm the school resource officer, in critical incidents such as active shooter scenarios. Because of that, I try to obtain as much training as I can. I'm not an expert at it, but I feel as though the more I can be trained, the more training I go to, the better off I'll be, the more informed I'll be, and I can inform others on how to have a mindset or how we can go about increasing our chances of survival in a critical incident. Who was here last time that I gave the presentation? I thought I seen a couple of familiar faces. Okay. All right. As I said last time, unless you've been living with your head in the sand, we all know and see on the news how common critical incidents such as active shooter situations are occurring. And really, obviously, no good comes from active shooters or active shooter scenarios, other than the fact that all levels of law enforcement, local, state, and federal, have the opportunity to dissect these incidents and find out what we can do to further enhance our safety. And since Columbine, since the shooting of Columbine, there have been major changes in the mindset of law enforcement and the community. Actually, it's just starting to get out there as far as to the community, how we should view these situations and how we should change our mindset. We have a mental map of basically everything we do, and with the exception of certain things like this. And we don't know how our own bodies are going to react during times of stress. And there are things that we can do if we exercise our mind that can further enhance our safety given any certain situation. But if we don't look into it and open up our minds, then we're going to make ourselves victims. And that's what this program is all about. I feel very strongly in what I'm going to present to you today. It's called the ALICE. It's an approach to a situation if you're ever faced with an active shooter. Keep in mind, this is just not for work or workplace. It can be anywhere. It can be in a restaurant, a movie theater, place of worship, anything like that. And it's basically simple steps other than what we used to do was a lockdown. Okay, we're going to go over that. Okay, so that's what I'm here for. We're going to talk about active shooter scenarios and the active killer and the mindset. Okay, first thing we want to do is give an explanation of an active shooter. That's easy enough. An active shooter emergency involves one or more persons using a firearm engaging in a random or systematic shooting spree. And this is correct. However, we found that no longer is the firearms the sole situation, because we're seeing more and more where people are using knives and machetes. And you'll be surprised if you get online and you Google critical incidents in the United States or mass killings, you'll be surprised how many don't make the national news. All right, and that's what we're going to go over. All right? What we need to do is look at the current plan we have, all right, which usually in most places anymore has to be changed. All right? Who here believes and or thinks that just a lockdown alone is what you should do? What if you're somewhere at a movie theater or a restaurant and there's a shooting? Do you just go into a room, lock it, and try to stay safe? A lot of people's mindset's changing, and they should, okay? Because what we're doing is we're making ourselves easy targets. All right? We have to revise our plan, and that's what I had to do. We have to find out what, after all these studies that we've done, concurrent with past shootings, and what we've learned from them, what are we going to tell our schools, all right, our places of worship, and our workplace? What can we do to further enhance our safety? And we've learned a lot. And we have to start changing the way we think. All right? The first thing we have to do, though, is realize what the purpose and the goals of these, I'm going to call them scumbags, are. Okay? To me, in law enforcement, I am a firm believer of not abusing your power and having respect for authority both ways. There's two situations: violations against children and violations against innocent people, victims of critical incidents like this, active shooters. I have no tolerance for people like that. These people, I can't understand what is in their mind that makes them roll out of bed in the morning and put a pair of shoes on, a pair of pants, and grab a handgun and go to a place where they used to work, or a place where the general public congregates, and decide to start killing people that will. And we need to understand, before we really get a plan, a solid plan, we need to understand what their motives are. And it's easy enough, it seems that way. But until we start breaking it down, we see what their motives are and how we can use it against them. And that's what I want to talk about. All right. First thing is, their purpose and their goal is to kill as many people as possible in a very short amount of time. And that's crucial. All right. Because most of these active shooters, all right, they know they have a very short window to do as much damage as they can, especially in a community like Hermitage. God forbid if something like that would happen here, you're going to have police officers here within seconds, I guarantee you. Okay? And it's very important. There's other places. You might find another job down the road where you work somewhere in a remote location where you might not get police response for 20 minutes. All right? So these are all important things. You might be at a function somewhere. All right? You might be at a fair during the summer, anywhere. What they want to do is they want to find soft, easy targets very quickly. They believe that they're going to run the show. All right? I kind of mentioned earlier about a mental map. All right? We should have a mental map on how we should stay safe. These people who perpetrate these kinds of acts, they have a mental map of how this is going to happen. Okay, what's your name, ma'am? Diane. Diane. If I'm an active shooter and I decide to come into this workplace, all right, they think because they have a weapon in their hands that they're going to run the show. Right? And if they tell you to do jumping jacks, you're going to do it. If they tell Diane to pick her nose, she's going to pick it. If they tell him to do jumping jacks, he's going to do it. All right? They think they are on top of the world and everybody's going to listen to what they have to say and what they're going to do. We have to change that. And you're going to hear me kind of refer to this. Just because somebody brings a weapon to a fight doesn't mean you're out of the fight. Okay, there's other things we can do. Believe me, I've trained for 24 years with my sidearm. All right? And there's a lot of times, given certain situations, that I can be off my game pretty easy. Okay, if I don't have the proper mindset. And these people that are committing these crimes, they're not experts. I'm not an expert, but they're not trained nearly as well as I am. I know that. And I know how easy I can get off my game. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Okay? So we got to make sure that we understand these tendencies. They're not going to expect any resistance whatsoever. All right? They have a mental map in their mind how this whole thing's going to go down. And if you start clouding it, they're going to start stressing more than you would even believe they can stress. All right? And lastly, when they decided to do this, they knew that they were going to end their life. You have either a disgruntled or pissed off employee that says that was either fired or they don't like the way something went, or maybe it's a client. And they came in and said, you know what, I don't feel like living anymore, but before I go, I'm going to take some people with me. All right? So they either know they're either gonna die by the hand of law enforcement or by their own hand. They're gonna kill themselves. These are all important things that we looked at, along with others that I just don't need to list here, that we, as law enforcement officials and the actual real experts in the federal government who've trained me, decided, you know what, we can use this against these perpetrators. I am not, by nature, I am not going to go down without a fight for anything. And I don't expect anybody else to do that. But for too long, the victims of these active shooter scenarios were laying in corners and getting bullets put in their head because they weren't told to do anything else. All right? And that's a shame. So, just like my wife's a school teacher, she teaches in Sharon. When I got my job as a school resource officer 5.5 years ago, and I started really studying maybe the different procedures that we should put in place for the school if it comes to an active shooter, I started really looking into it. But we always know that a popular thought in our minds, and everybody wants to say, you know, that's a scary scenario, but I don't think hopefully it'll never happen here. Same thing with my wife. I would ask her, you know what, Minnie, what would happen if there was an active shooter in your school? What would you do? And her response was, just like so many other people in the public, I don't even want to think about it. And that's the worst thing she could have said. All right? Because you'll see earlier or later in a slide, Roosevelt had one of my favorite sayings: in a time of decision, the best thing to do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing, but the worst thing to do is nothing. And what we were told in the past with regards to active shooter scenarios is find a safe haven, what you think is a safe haven, hunker down and wait for the police. All right? And later on you're going to see that these incidents occur so quickly, sometimes there's not time for the police to come and save you. This is a quick snapshot. Before I get to this though, I mentioned earlier, I'm constantly being trained in active shooter scenarios. And one of the privileges, I guess you can call it, this is the fact that at these trainings, I see a lot of things that the general public's not allowed to see with regards to shootings that they just don't release. It's things that you can't unsee. And that's why I'm very passionate about it. One of the people that I met, his name was Jim McKenna. He was the former chief of Chardon. You guys remember Chardon, the high school that got shot up? And he used to speak at these seminars and everything, and he told me, Tony, I can't do it anymore because it's too stressful for him. Jim was the second one on scene there, and he actually slipped on one of the kids' blood in the cafeteria. And what he tells me all the time is, he says, Tony, don't ever think that it can't happen here. And Chardon is no different than Hermitage. All right? In fact, my son plays ice hockey, and when we go up to Cleveland or Columbus, we pass the Chardon exit. It's not far from here. And it gives me goosebumps, all right? And it keeps reminding me of what Jim tells me. Don't ever think it's not going to happen. Hopefully it won't, but you have to prepare as though it's going to happen now. Hope it never does, but be prepared. Not only law enforcement, but we as potential victims have to understand that there are things we can do to keep safe. All right? And hopefully we'll get some of that as we go today. This is just an example of some of the, I said earlier about if you Google, you'll be surprised how many critical incidents go unreported or not unreported, but they don't make national news between I have some, Jerry, it's not the, oh, there we go. All right. Between 2000 and 2013, there were 160 critical incidents or active shooter situations. All right? Now that's a lot. That equals to about almost 12 per year, one a month. I don't know about you, but that's a hell of a lot for a critical incident or an active shooter scenario. All right? Of those 160 incidents, there are 1,043 casualties, either killed or wounded. All right? There was basically 486 killed and 557 wounded. Those wounded go from anywhere from a shot that people recovered from to quadriplegics. I mean, to me, that's crazy. And if we don't look at this as a society and say we need to take action and do something different, we're crazy. Now that was just between 2000 and 2013. In the year between 2014 and 15, it increased dramatically where there were 40 incidents involving 92 deaths and 139 wounded. All right? And that forced us to think, we need to change our way of thinking and turn the tables on these people. All right? Right now, like I said earlier, what we usually do, shelter in place. When I became a school resource officer, I walked through the schools with the administration, and their procedure at the time for an active shooter was lock the door, or get inside your doors, lock them. However, the teacher had to go outside with her keys, all right, lock the door from the outside, and then get back into the room. All right. Number one, I don't know if anybody can even find their key on a key ring under that much stress who's not used to it. Okay? And how can you expect a teacher to do that? So they showed me that, and then we walked through the halls with the superintendent and the principal, and they were all happy with big smiles on their faces. They said, see, you can't hear, you can hear a pin drop, you can't hear a kid at all in here. And I'm thinking to myself, thinking, oh my gosh, do you think for a minute that this active shooter thinks that no one's in the school because you can't hear them? Everybody knew at the time that that was the standard operating procedures. Lock down, hide and wait for help and be quiet. Do you think that's going to deter an active shooter? You think he's going to walk through the halls and say, oh, that doesn't sound like anything here, I'm leaving? No. Okay, but I couldn't express it that way. So 2 or 3 years later, after I studied Alice more, I went to the school board and presented it to them. And especially after I told them that the Homeland Security, the Department of Homeland Security, International Chiefs of Police Association, the FBI, and various federal agencies endorsed this Alice program, is whenever they said they realized that actually if we don't adopt it, then they worry more about liability if they don't adopt it. I'm not worried about liability, I'm worried about saving people's lives. Okay, so not the liability aspect of it. Like I said earlier, I think it makes you sitting ducks, and that's why we come to Alice. Thing is, we've had too many incidences of active shooter scenarios, and we have to change the way we think, and we have to react accordingly, and we have to understand that just because somebody brings a weapon to a fight doesn't mean you're out of the fight. Okay? And I don't mean to talk like a cowboy, and I don't mean to, but especially with numbers. If you work in an area where you have lots of people there are strength in numbers, okay? And there's things we can do. These guys are not experts who do this. Okay? We have to remember a couple other things. An active shooter scenario will be fluid, it'll be constantly moving. It could start at the main office, right? And within seconds it could move down to maybe the east wing or the left or west wing or through the whole area of where you work. It's going to affect everybody in the area, and it's going to, it usually does involve unintended victims. Although at times, sometimes it begins with maybe one disgruntled ex-employee that is pissed off at his boss and he wants to go get revenge on him. However, on the way to get him, he's going to take everybody else out with him. If somebody brings a weapon to a place like this, just expect that he's here to get everybody. And that's the way you have to think. The big thing about Alice is your mind, your brain is a muscle. All right? I kind of explained earlier that whenever I told my wife and I asked her about it, just like the rest of the public, if you don't think about what you can do or what you should do, you're going to freeze. There's 3 reactions to fear and danger: fight, flight, or freeze. Okay? Any one of those can kill you, and any one of those can save your life. But if you don't know how to act accordingly and to the information that's given, then you might make the wrong decision. Right? That's what Alice is all about. You have to train your brain. In law enforcement, we call it the OODA loop. We're going to call it something different I already referred to it. The OODA loop means observe, orient, decide, and act. All right? We can no longer feel as though we're going to be victims somewhere and forget about the noise and try to cover your ears and hide in a corner and wait for help. It's going to make you a soft target. It's going to make you a victim. We have to start observing and orienting ourselves what we can do to keep ourselves safe. Law enforcement officers do it all the time. What's your name, ma'am? Connie. I'll give you an example. Let's pretend, Connie, I don't want to sing you out. Say you lose your job today. Tomorrow you come in here and you want to talk to your supervisor. You honestly want to have a nice discussion with her. But your supervisor and the people here are worried about that, so they call the police, and Officer Moses responds. And Connie's standing there and she's talking in a nice, calm voice and says, listen, I just want an opportunity to talk to my former boss and see what I did wrong. All right? I'll change that around to the point that in 15, maybe 10 minutes, her demeanor went from that to extreme rage. That 10 minutes, my OODA loop is constantly changing. OODA means observe, orient, decide, and act. And loop is just like a video recording where it loops my mind, and your constant awareness has to be looping all the time. And that 10 minutes that maybe I've dealt with Connie, maybe she went to a total docile, nice person to someone within that 10 minutes pulled out a weapon out of her pocket, right? So I have to constantly change the way I'm going to react and decide what I'm going to do and how I observe things. And that's what you need to do. Don't make yourself victims. You guys are stronger. Everybody, each person is stronger than they think. Okay? Just because somebody is stupid and crazy enough to bring a weapon to any place to cause such destruction doesn't mean that you are helpless. You have to understand that and realize that. All right? And I referred to that already as your mental map. You have to have a plan on what we want to do. And I don't mean saying that your office is over there and if something happens, I'm going to run out the door, take 5 steps, take another 10 steps, and then hit the exit. I mean have enough confidence and understanding that you have options in the event something like this happens. That you don't have to just close and lock your door and wait for help. You might have to do that. All right? But I'm going to tell you what else you need to do if that happens to ensure your safety. All right? I kind of mentioned this earlier. What I don't understand is, you know, the other day I was watching the news with my son, and he's 13, and he takes a lot of interest in the news and what's going on. And there was video footage of the airport down in Florida where that guy shot 2 people. Did you guys see that? Where he just pulled the weapon out and started shooting. Did you see how many people were behind him? Okay. Now, I'm not saying this to be a cowboy, because that's just maybe the law enforcement in me, you know, I know what I would have done, okay? And it's nothing that any of you couldn't have done either, all right? My son said, Dad, look at the people behind him. He pulled a weapon out and started shooting. There's people behind him watching. The problem with them, right, it's not their fault, but they never anticipated a situation like that. They never had a mental map that what if I was faced with something so drastic that I had to take action. Instead, they froze. They sat there and watched him shoot people. Right? It's kind of similar to years ago. I use this example a lot. My daughter, she's 17 now, but whenever she was younger, she had a plastic play set, you know, with like a teapot and everything. And she used to play cooking with it. And so she left, without my wife knowing, she left the plastic stuff inside the stove. And I remember my mom telling me when I was young, whenever you turn that damn stove on, make sure nothing's in it. I remember my mom when I was always, you know, open it up real quick and look before time. My wife, she's a career woman, she's a teacher. She was probably in a hurry. She turned the stove on. I'm watching the Penguin game. All of a sudden, she's screaming. And it's, Anthony, fire was just billowing out of it. All that plastic stuff was on fire. All right, now I don't say this to toot my own horn, but it's to make a point. I calmly got off the couch, I went and got a fire extinguisher and put out the fire. She was in tears. She goes, Anthony, how were you so calm in that whole thing? I said, because my job, I've conditioned my mind, my brain. If I go to a scene, any type of scene, and I show any type of stress or that I can't handle it, number one, who's going to have any faith in me? Number two, how am I going to accomplish my job the way I need to? And I've trained my brain, all officers train their brain, that we can handle stressful situations easier because that's what we do on a daily basis. You might not get in a car accident ever in your life, you might get into one, and it might be a fender bender, and your wife might be totally flipped out about it and crazy about it. We're used to dealing with them all the time. Okay? And that's what you need to do. It's kind of similar to that, where we need to make sure that, hey, you know what, have enough faith. You know what, if something happens, there's something else I can do. There's different options I can take, or that I might have, to make sure that I can get out of the situation. And there's a lot of things we can do. All right? So what we're going to talk about is Alice. That's what, as I said earlier, that's what the government, one of the systems that the government has approved and endorses. All right? And Alice is an acronym for 5 different steps you can use, all right, in the event that there's something like this occurs in your workplace. So A stands for alert. Now, these all seem pretty easy and simple, all right? However, there's a situation, and I won't play it for you today, but at Columbine, we all remember Columbine.
Yes.
When Columbine happened, there were so many lessons learned on all areas, first and foremost with law enforcement, okay? Law enforcement at the time, anytime situations like that happened, we would secure the perimeter, right? Get teams ready and go in, okay? Columbine lasted 44 minutes. It's one of the few active shooter scenarios in the school that lasted so long. And the reason why, they didn't know it at the time, but law enforcement enabled it to happen, right? Because they were outside waiting to get teams together to try to go and eliminate the threat. All right? And we've learned since then, we can't do that. We can't wait. In the schools, as a police officer, I'm either going to be a hero or I'm going to be dead. The shooter's going to want to take me out first and go do what he wants to do, or I'm going to hopefully get to where I need to do and take him out before he kills anybody else. All right? But I've resigned myself to the fact, for every kid's sake and every parent's sake there, that if something like that happens, my ass is hiking right to the killer. I'm not running. I'm going straight to him to try to get rid of him. All right? Eliminate that threat. So, a lot of these seem very simple. However, there is a woman at Columbine. I kind of got off track, but I brought up Columbine. There was a teacher. Her name's Patricia Nielsen. She was an art teacher at Columbine. It just so happened that during the time of the shooting, she had a study hall in a library. All right? And there's a recording, and I won't play it today, all right, but it's in one of my slides here. But I purposefully play it for 4 minutes and 38 seconds. That's how long she was on the phone with 911. And you can hear the desperation in her voice saying she had got shot in her shoulder because she went out into the hallway, she seen Claybold shooting. First she thought it was a play until she started hearing the gunshot and realized it was real. And whenever she screamed at him, stop it, he turned the gun, shot her in the shoulder, she ran back into the library. She was so stressed out and so panicked, she didn't realize that she was shot in the shoulder. But during the call with 911, she says, I think something's in my shoulder, I don't know. But anyway, she had panic in her voice, rightfully so. And you can hear the gunshots getting closer to her library. She was on the phone. And you can hear the desperation in her voice telling the kids to get underneath the tables. Because the only thing they knew, that the majority of the public and the schools knew in the United States, was shelter in place and wait for help, right? That's all she knew. So you can hear her talking to the dispatchers, telling her what was going on. I can hear the shots getting closer. And at the same time, you can hear her yelling at the kids, get underneath the desk, hide, hide. And at the 4-minute and 38-second mark, Harris comes into the library and shoots 10 kids dead. Shoots her again, but she survived. And shoots 3 other kids that they survived. I believe one of them was paralyzed. All right? The point in that is Mrs. Nielsen is not stupid. She was a smart lady. All right? But just like many other students, many other employees who want to do a good job, they are strict rule followers. The sad part about it is 15 feet behind her was an exit door. Yeah. Okay? She was never told in her training of all her years of being a teacher that evacuating was an option. And that's part of Alice. We'll get to that. And that's what you people need to understand, that there's different options. Because believe me, you might sit here and think, oh, if I hear gunshots and I hear them getting closer, if there's an exit door right there, man, I'll run to that door and leave. Most of us would like to think that's what we'll do. But guess what? A lot of us don't realize how we're going to truly react under severe stress. okay? And that was her. She's seen tunnel vision. Most all of us will see tunnel vision. But it is a scientific fact that when people get into that mode of tunnel vision and they get in that freeze mode, and if they don't know what to do, that their mind will find somehow the area in their mind where they were told somewhere along their life or somewhere along the line that if you can leave and evacuate, you do it. So maybe if Mrs. Nielsen was in this classroom or just even sat in a discussion like we were having today, maybe that would have been enough for her to trigger in her mind, in her mental map, evacuation is an option. For 4 minutes and 38 seconds, she was on the phone with 911. It probably could have taken her 15 seconds to evacuate those kids out of school. Okay, but she never gave that a thought. So a lot of these things seem simple, but if they're that simple, then why didn't Patricia Nielsen do it? Why didn't the kids at Virginia Tech do it, right? And all these other places who were victims, all right? So the first thing we got to do is we have to be alerted that a situation like this is going on, all right? We're going to go through each one of these later, but I'm just going to give you the acronyms for Alice. The second is lockdown. I said earlier that I don't agree with lockdowns, and I don't. However, there are times when you might have to. All right? And if you have to, I'm going to give you different ideas and examples of what's going to further enhance the lockdown, which would secure your safety even more. All right? Because a closed door might not be enough. I is inform, C is counter, and E is evacuate. All these things do is enable you to utilize your natural reactions to fear, all right, or anger, or when you're scared, which is fight, flight, or freeze, and that's what I talked about before. And you can see, freeze, that's going to be lockdown. Flight, that's going to be evacuate, and fight's going to be counter, all right? So what we're doing is, instead of somebody fighting their natural reactions to fear or what they should do, which would have been locking down before, now we're allowing you to say, hey, listen, if you think it's safer to leave under the information you got, we're going to go over each one of these and go ahead and do it. And I'll give you an example of that. Newtown, you guys remember that shooting, right? There was a 6-year-old boy who was in the hallway when the guy started shooting. And the guy either reloaded or he had a jam. I can't remember, but he was temporarily busy with his weapon. The young boy, knowing he already shot some kids, told 5 of his classmates to run, and they ran out of the school. It took the investigators who interviewed these kids probably 2 hours to have those kids actually say, yeah, we ran out of the school. And the reason why is because they thought they did something wrong. You know, because Newtown told them that what they were supposed to do in a situation where there's a stranger or an intruder in the school was to lock down and get safe inside of a classroom. Sad, but well, the good part about it, in a kind of odd way, is once the shooter reloaded his weapon, he went into that classroom where those boys came from and shot some kids. All right. So that kid didn't realize he's a hero. But he was so afraid to tell authorities that he did something against what the school was supposed to tell him. Because you know why? Because he reacted to his natural fears, right? He ran, all right? He ran from the situation. Why in the heck did we get away from that? I don't know, all right? What we don't want you guys to do is just think, oh, well, that's an option, just run, and you run into the shooter in the hallway. Okay, so what Alice is just a system, and you have to understand, it's not a progressive linear system. You don't have to use any, you can just use E if you have to. If we're standing here and there's an exit door and you hear shots fired, get the hell out, right? Forget about these other ones with the exception of maybe this one, and I'll talk about that later. All right? Because this is what we're going to base what we do. What we do to further enhance our safety is going to be based on the information we get. All right? That information can come from the sounds of gunfire, can be from a phone call, can be from a PA system, telling you that there's an active shooter, maybe in the main hallway, or in the foyer, or maybe in office 101. Are your offices and rooms numbered?
Yep.
And are you all familiar with them? We need to be. If you're not, you should be. And you really, really should be. So take some time to walk through your facility and find out what's what. orient yourself. Even if management has to put maybe a north, maybe a compass somewhere, or number the exits a certain way. Because what you need to do is, in the event that someone says there's an active shooter in a north hallway, you want to know where the north hallway is. Because if you're in the south hallway and there's an exit door close and you can get out easily, do it. But if you don't know, you're not oriented to where the north hallway is, how are you going to know to make a proper decision? Okay. So like I said earlier, Alice is not a linear or progressive response. It enables you to make decisions based on information you obtain. It's not meant to change everything, but to enhance your current policy and give options of response in various scenarios. Before, we didn't have options. All we did was lock down. All that did at Virginia Tech was kill people. All it did at Columbine was kill people. Okay. But what this does is it saved, especially those 6 kids I talked about, it ran from Sandy Hook, remember? Because they reacted to their natural fears. Now, we're going to go through each one of these, and like I said, I'm kind of going to be repetitive here. And when you first look at these, you're going to think, again, you're going to think, oh man, of course, that's pretty simple and self-explanatory. But again, if it was, then why are so many people, why do they become victims? All right? And although it seems easy, the reason why it's in this format is simply because of this. We don't want, I don't know what your procedure is here if something bad happens. You go on lockdown, you announce it?
Yes.
Or do you? Do you say lockdown and then give examples why? Or
Well, we're working on actually updating the policy right now in terms of the location to go to that you had talked about back in August, so we're working on putting that together. But in terms of a situation that takes place with other situations that we have panic buttons in each of the offices within this building and several of our other locations. So during those times, we would announce exactly where the problem is and what room, and those who, we have responders, several of us who would respond to it, and that way we would isolate that area.
And so as times increase, maybe you might find yourself having more elevated threats maybe in your facility, but maybe not active shooter threats. And this is why it's important, the alert aspect's important. And I'll give you an example of that. In the schools, we did not want kids to think that as soon as an announcement was made, if there was a lockdown, that you have an option to evacuate. Because we might do a lockdown for somebody who has a medical problem in the halls. If that's the case, under our standard operating procedures, we're not going to have kids roaming the halls. We don't want anybody in the halls. If there's a medical emergency and someone's down in a hall, we don't want kids walking around. So we're going to call for a light lockdown, where you stay in your rooms and all that out. Okay? Or maybe a wild dog got in the school, or a skunk. Who knows? All right? We don't want kids evacuating because there's a wild dog in the school, right? That's why it's very, very important that when there's an alert made of an active shooter, it is that very point is that there is an active shooter in your facility. You have to have somebody that's capable of announcing it, calling people, there's a PA system, whatever it is, to let people know that there is an active shooter on the premise. And give whatever information you can give. All right? That's why alerts. Alert can be the gunfire, obviously. You'll be surprised how many people don't know what a gun sounds like being fired in, maybe inside of a building. These are issues that management needs to maybe address, that maybe go through maybe different scenarios, maybe not. All right. My guess is if that happens, most people are going to realize what it is, but you'll be surprised in my training how many times there are witnesses that are interviewed that thought that maybe that gunfire was maybe a backfire in a vehicle outside, or fireworks or something, and never took it seriously that might be a gunshot in the building. So alert's very important. The thing is, there needs to be somebody that is in here that knows what's going on, that is made aware of it, that's on 911, on a phone with 911, and is making all attempts to alert everybody in the building. And that's where I comes in later on, where we need to inform everybody what's going on. This is a very quick progression. Okay? Now, a lockdown. This is a semi-secure starting point from which to make survival decisions. All right? if you decide that it's not safe to evacuate. Now, if you get information, you're sitting in an office in a room and you hear one of your employees, maybe they call you on your cell phone, or you hear an announcement over the PA system that there's an active shooter in the building, and that's all you hear. My advice to you is simply lock down at the time. Because what you don't want to do is run in and out into the hallway and into the path of the gunman. All right? If that's all the information you have, then lock down. But we're going to tell you what else to do. I told you earlier, the lockdown, I don't agree with them. I don't. With the exception of one thing, we need to make sure you barricade the hell out of the door. Remember earlier I said that these perpetrators have between 4 and 16 minutes on the average. That's how long these active shooter scenarios last. Why in the hell do you think if you're in an office or in a room somewhere and you barricade the heck out of that door, why would he spend any undue time trying to bust down that barricade and waste his precious time? He knows that he only has a few minutes, and he wants to find as many soft targets as he can. He's not going to bother trying to bust down a barricade. He's going to go move on to the next room that has softer targets. That's why it's very important. There is room for a lockdown, but you have to make sure that if you do that, you barricade the door. All right? Even if he's hell-bent to try to get in. Maybe, what's your name, sir? Dave. Maybe it's an ex-employee that used to work with Dave, and he's pissed off at Dave, and this guy don't want to live no more, but he's taking Dave with him. And he knows where Dave's office is, if he has an office. And Dave finds out there's an active shooter, this guy already shot a couple people, or finds out he's on a premise, and David can't leave, so he's going to barricade his office. If you barricade the heck out of that office, all right? Just think if you didn't, and he finds some way to breach that door or bust the lock on that door, comes in and he shoots you. Or you can barricade the heck out of it as high as you can, not to here, with tables, chairs, whatever you can. And he spends a couple minutes. Do you think our police department wouldn't get here within at least 2 minutes of an active shooter here? You're damn right we will. And it's not going to take him any less time than 2 minutes to bust through that barricade if it's done the right way. All right? Well, what's the alternative? Just locking the door and have him breach and come out and shoot you? And then we find you there? So barricading, we found, was a huge, huge aspect of this whole thing. You know, in Virginia Tech, there was a professor. He did 2 tours of Vietnam. He was decorated. He was a great guy, apparently. All right. Cho, the shooter, he attempted to get in this professor's classroom, and I believe he shot him through the window, or he took a shot as he was closing the door, and it was a fatal shot, and the professor dropped right at the door, and at the time, those doors open inward, and you've heard of the phrase dead weight. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but dead weight's dead weight, all right? There's a lifeless body is heavy, and he actually, and that's Virginia Tech, saying, you know what, it was a terrible situation that they learned it from, but barricading, it prevented Cho from getting into that room. He tried getting in there. He probably could have if he would have given more effort, right? But you know what he did? There was more students and more classrooms, so he disregarded that classroom. That professor lost his life, but he saved all the kids in that room because his body alone, at the bottom of the door, acted as a barricade because it didn't allow him to open the door. All right? Like I said, I'm sure he could have finagled it open, pushed it, but he didn't want to spend the time to do it. Okay. This guy was a decorated vet, and that's how he had to lose his life. So what we need to do is if we do hear that announcement that there's an active shooter and you don't know where he's at, or maybe you do know where he's at. Maybe you're in your own office and you hear that he's working his way. Maybe you hear the shots getting closer. Maybe Jerry or another employee got on the loudspeaker and said he's on, I don't know how you label your hallways, but maybe he's in the east wing hallway and that's where your office is. Well, you know what? You better make that decision now because the information you obtained, it's not safe to evacuate, so I better lock down. But along with locking down, to further enhance my safety, I better barricade the hell out of that door. Okay, do it, guys. All right? Do it with anything you can. What I tell the teachers at the schools and different employees at different at their workplace, in their offices. If you have filing cabinets or whatever, put them close to the door. Strategically configure your office or your room to your advantage, and in the event something like this would happen. All right? It's not that hard to push filing cabinets. They're heavy, but if you push them on carpet or even linoleum stuff, they're not hard to do. But if you have a couple of them and you put them, if this is your office, you put them close to the door, if there's an act issue, you can push them in front of the door. Don't stop there, put whatever else you can put up there. You know, barricade it with tables, chairs, okay? Make it more difficult for him to get into that room. If that situation alone would have happened at like Virginia Tech or anywhere, it would have saved a lot of lives. Okay? But we were always told to lock it and go in a corner and wait. So that's what we want to make sure we do, no matter where we're at. Okay? We might find ourselves in a restaurant and the exit's too far. Maybe the gunman or where there's a threat between you and the exit, and the only place you can find refuge for you and your family is the bathroom. Okay? Go in the bathroom and configure some way. Find some way to further enhance that lockdown in that bathroom. If that's a belt tied around the handle and put it on a bathroom stall or whatever it is, extension cord, whatever. Now, after you barricade and you make sure you barricade it the best you can, I don't want that to end for you. All right? What you need to do is get out of the way of any windows or the path of the door, and I want you to get in that corner that you're safe. But I want you to think outside the box. Think, okay, what if he does try to get in here? All right, what am I going to do? Have a plan. This guy has a plan, so you should also. You shouldn't just sit there and wait. Okay, I did my part. I'm going to sit and wait for help. Think of the worst case scenario. Think if he gets in here, what am I going to do? Okay. What if you don't have a window? Okay. What else?
Go under a desk.
Go under a desk. Okay.
Like that.
Okay. Those are options, but we're not completely now thinking outside of the box right now.
Right.
You'll see. All right. Okay. Don't wait to have a plan don't wait till he gets inside to formulate your plan. Have one of your own. What you need to do is look around the room and see what you can use as a weapon. Okay? Anything. Books, keys, purses, staplers. There's a bunch of chairs in here. Honestly. I mean, think about it. I mean, if I walked in that room and I told you, you know, let's do a little experiment. I walk in there. I guarantee you that if I walk in there and someone throws this at me, I'm going to get hurt. At the very least, I'm going to flinch, right? Mm-hmm. It's human reaction for a person if something's being thrown at them to flinch. Maybe that's enough that you need. Maybe that's all you need. All right? Earlier, I talked about the OOD loop, right? Your mental map. What we found in the studies is this. Remember how I said that they have a mental map. They have it in their mind like a running film strip on how this whole thing is going to go down. They woke up that morning and said, you know what? Enough of this life. I'm sick of the community counseling center. I'm going to go take Jerry out and whoever gets in my way. I'm tired of my life. I'm ending it now, but I'm taking a bunch of people with me. He gets up. He has it in his mind. Okay, he gets a hold of a weapon. Right? These aren't spontaneous acts of violence. People kind of plan these things out. So they get a weapon and they show up and all of a sudden they. I have to take it because it's work. Hold on. Hello? Yeah, good. Hey, you know, I'm in the middle of a presentation. Can you call me back in about an hour? That's all right. All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. It's juvenile probation. I had to take it, guys. Sorry. School. So this guy comes to the workplace, all right? Two scenarios. I'll give you one. Number one, he walks in, busts into the front office in the foyer, busts out the window, does what he needs to do, goes through the hallway, busts out the doors or breaks the locks or whatever, and all of a sudden, boom, start shooting people that are hunkered down in their offices, right? And hiding, waiting for help, okay? Second scenario, just think that he does that. As he's walking down the hall, all of a sudden he has all the shit being thrown at him. Chairs, people running all over the place. All of a sudden his OOD loop, his mental map is getting cloudier and cloudier. What he had thought about running through his mind, because he was so pumped up, and this is how it's going to go down, all of a sudden, his mental map's getting real distorted. Part of our job as police officers is maintaining our stress level and maintaining control. And sometimes, I can tell you, for 24 years, after 24 years of law enforcement, sometimes it's a struggle to do that. Why should that be any different for these scumbags who are perpetrating these acts of violence? And they're not even trained. Turn the tables around on them, right? All right? Screw up their OODA loop, screw up their mental map. And I'll give you an example of that. When I went to training prior to Columbine, like I said earlier, what they did is they waited for teams to go in to try to eliminate threats, all right? Now they know that, like me in the school, I'm not waiting for a soul. I'm going straight to the threat and trying to eliminate it. Simple as that. Because of that, I needed to increase my training. I needed to brush up on how I was going to approach and engage an active shooter on my own, all right? And I don't care who you are, I don't care if you think you're Superman or a cowboy, you get nervous when you're in a school setting and you look down a hall and you see door after door. I was thinking, man, I'm going to have to do the best I can. All right? And then I found out about this training, it's called Raider training, where they teach you how to go after and eliminate these threats solo engagement. All right? And I gained a lot of confidence from it. During that training, they put me through a couple scenarios. One of the scenarios was, it's a series of three, I had 3 or 4. But they told me, what we used is simulation rounds. Did you ever hear that? We used our ordinary weapons or sometimes airsoft, but they stung. They weren't obviously real bullets, all right? And they stung, and sometimes they break skin, all right? Quite frankly, it sucks getting hit with them, right? It stings. They used me as a perpetrator. They said, this is what we want you to do. We want you to go into the classroom and shoot as many people as you can, fatal shot. I said, okay. First scenario, I go into the classroom. It was under the auspices of the old lockdown system where they're all waiting in a corner. Boom, 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 I'm picking them off with ease. It was easy. I said, okay. Next scenario, go in, you're going to be met with some resistance. I said, all right. I go in. As soon as I turn the corner, what they used was tennis balls. I had a bunch of tennis balls being thrown at me. Now, I'm not telling you to bring tennis balls to work as a defense mechanism. What I'm telling you is because it was a controlled training, they didn't want to throw staplers and paperweights at me because I'd get hurt. So they used tennis balls, all right, which served the purpose and made me realize, even more so, and it should make you guys realize, even as a trained police officer, it's your human reaction to flinch at things that are being thrown at you. So as I turned that corner, had all those tennis balls being thrown at me, I was caught off guard, number one. I didn't expect it, and I had all these stimuluses coming at me. And I was trying to dodge them, even though they didn't hurt me. It's just my natural reaction.
You can't shoot anybody while you're doing
Right. My kill rate went down, but I still had one. The third scenario, they said, okay, do the same thing. I did it. I came in. I had tennis balls being thrown at me from every direction. So every time I turned this way to take the guy out, he was gone, and somebody else was throwing something at me. So what I'm telling you guys, and this is all part of kind of, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here in the Alice training. What I'm telling you is you need, my OODA loop was disrupted. All right? I'm a trained police officer, and that even threw off my ability to accomplish what I wanted to do. So if you can imagine doing that and the effects that had on a trained police officer, all right, can you imagine someone who's going in, decided to commit these acts, who's not even trained to do it? All right? In my reasoning, and if you sit and think about it, there's no way we should lose to these people. I'm not saying there's not going to be injuries, but there's sure in hell not going to be as many casualties if you act that way towards a threat compared to sitting in a corner waiting to get a bullet in your head, right? Okay. And that's what Alice is all about, right? The I in Alice is informed. It's very, very important. Information is what we're going to base our decisions on whether we evacuate or lock down, okay? So, it's just as important to receive it as it is to give the information. Give you a scenario. Let's pretend we're in here. All right, Dave, right? Mm-hmm. Dave's in here, all of a sudden he hears gunfire. And we're all in here. All right? The thing that I want you guys to do is evacuate, save yourselves. All right? As Dave's running out, what I would hope, and he would have probably never thought to do this until maybe now, just like Patricia Nielsen would have never thought to evacuate the kids. As you're running out, call an employee that might be on the other side of the building. Right? Inform the rest of your fellow employees that are in this building what's going down, what's happening. When I'm in the schools, I tell the kids, you know, it used to be whenever there was a lockdown. Let's pretend that there's an active shooter up on the 3rd floor of the high school. This is one of the situations I explained to the kids. If you're upstairs on the 3rd floor and there's a shooter upstairs, all right, and you have no other choice but to lock down. They lock down and barricade. In the past, you were told to just lock down, be quiet, and don't say anything. Well, we still want to be quiet because criminals they act on opportunity, and if they hear something, then they'll act on it possibly. So you do want to be quiet. However, we used to tell kids, don't use your cell phones. Now we're urging them, call whoever you can. Not mom or dad to tell them you're all right. Call someone within the school. Maybe your best friend or another friend is downstairs on a 1st or 2nd floor. That you can tell them, listen, there's an active shooter upstairs, so that they're informed, so they can maybe if they're on the 1st floor and they know the shooter's up on the 3rd floor, they can hike their asses out of an exit door to safety, right? Now, before we were telling them not to, right? Be quiet. But that information's golden. Just imagine if a huge contingency of kids upstairs on the 3rd floor got on their phones and called a huge amount of kids on it. They could get that 1st and 2nd floor evacuated so much quicker. It's unbelievable. We have to use our resources. And you have to do that here too. If you are on a lockdown and you've barricaded your door, you're either on 911 and talking to them, or if you're with a group of people, one person's responsible for staying on the phone with 911, and others are calling other employees in the building, saying, listen, this is what's going on. All right? If you can get out, if you're on the other end of the building, go. Jerry, do you have a question?
Yeah, just along that point, all of our phones within this building have an all-page button on them, so you can do an all-page from any one of the offices. So anybody could do it.
And that's awesome. You know, in the old way I thought before with the lockdown was, don't let him hear that you know where he's at. Who cares? Who cares? The shooter knows where he's at. The shooter knows that there's panic in the building. He knows that people are going to eventually, it could be 10 seconds, it could be the next second, it could be the next 5 minutes that you're in the building. If you can get on the PA system, somebody somewhere, teach them all how to use it so that everybody can utilize it. In the event that you're hunkered down somewhere and you can get it out to the rest of this building, there's a school shoot, or there's an active shooter in the building. Okay? Announce it. Announce it. You know, the worst case scenario I can think is panic going on here, and all of a sudden Dave says, what the hell's going on? What's going on? And he hears people screaming and yelling. What's going on? Maybe it's just a fight. Boom. It's terrible. However, it's over the loudspeaker. There's an active shooter. You know what? Don't go and look. Use that door and get out. Okay? Seems so simple, guys, but it's nothing that was told before. It really wasn't. And you really don't know how you're going to act under that crazy stress. You might freeze and have tunnel vision. You know, your mind works in really funny ways. All right? I'll give you an example. You know, when I was younger, my dad would take me to the Pens games. I'm a huge hockey fan. My son plays, I play in men's league, and one of my assets is I'm a pretty decent skater. I'm not a real good puck handler, but I'm a good skater. And I think the reason why is because when I was young, I used to go, my favorite part of the game was pregame and watching the guys skate and watching their footwork. And he used to tell me, just watch their feet, watch what they do. I'd go home when I was little and I'd pretend I was in an NHL. And I'd pretend I was skating like them. Not transferred right from there to when I got on the ice. My mind emulated what I was watching or what I was rehearsing in my mind. I honestly believe that was why I became a decent skater. So we can't underestimate how we think and how our mind works. And that's why I urge you guys that we don't want to harp on it. We don't want to get overly stressed out at work about it. But we have to consider what are our options if something happens. And that I'm stronger, especially as a group, we're stronger than we think. And we can't become simple, easy victims for these people that do this stuff. whether it's at work, or whether it's a restaurant, or at a theater, or in public somewhere. All right? Again, I go off. See, I start talking, I go off. Let's see. Somebody's going to be on the phone with 911. In my job, if we know who, what, where, when, and how pertaining to any incident, whether it's a crime or not, our chances of solving it and succeeding what we're doing is pretty damn good. All right? Now, if you're on a phone with 911, you might not know who it is, but you know what's going on. There's an active shooter. This is where I work. That's going on right now, and he's using a weapon. That's pretty damn good odds, guys. Information's huge when it comes to this type of stuff. Not only for you guys as far as obtaining it, but for fellow employees. It's huge for responding emergency personnel, for police officers. All right? Don't underestimate the power of being sitting by a window if you have to lock down, and as you see a police officer come skidding into the yard, jumping out of his police car, and you saying, "He's in room 202, he's near 202. Scream it, tell them. All right? I tell the kids at the school and the teachers and staff, be specific. If I'm in my office or if I'm in the cafeteria and all of a sudden I hear on the loudspeaker, active shooter in the school, what good is it going to be to do out in the building, main hallway and go, I want to know where the hell he's at. I don't want to run this way when he's over there. So as much information that you can give to others is very, very vital. Because it could be the difference between someone running out that door to save their lives or running out that door into the gunman, okay?
Something that you said last time you were here that I remember is you said make sure that you have your coworkers' phone numbers in your own phone so that you can say, you know, let them know what's going on.
Yeah, and you know, even if there's some type, and I'm not real good with technology at all, if there's some way that, you know, there's some type of group messaging with everybody, or that maybe Jerry or a manager or department heads or whatever has access to give out information to everybody very quickly, it could be so helpful. I mean, it takes a short amount of time to point a gun at somebody and pull the trigger. You know, it really does. And the difference between 5 seconds, it can be crucial. You know, I can get from here to that door in 5 seconds and get out of the building. You know, and that's why I used to play that 911 tape of Patricia Nilsson in the library for 4 minutes and 38 seconds. I do it on purpose because people almost got like, oh man, that's enough. It seems like such a long time. But if she could have evacuated those kids in 15 seconds out of that room. You know? And the thing is, it's just the mental map that we got to think. And we're going to come to counter later on and how our mental map and disrupting his mental map could be so advantageous, and it's not that hard to do. It's just getting over that hump and realizing that we're not helpless. Okay? You know, this just kind of covers everything with regards to informing everybody. I kind of covered that a little bit before. Informing your coworkers, informing emergency personnel, whether that's on the phone. You might have a good friend that's in the fire department, and that's the only person you can call. You know what? Maybe he's in direct communication with somebody, or who knows? All right. You might see somebody walking from Burger King down the street, and you can call the police because maybe, you know, for some reason it wasn't. Maybe the lines were tied up. Who knows? What I'm saying is, as much information, it's not going to hurt you that you get out there. Right?
What about pulling a fire alarm?
Well, then we're getting into some real sticky situations, all right? Because some of them actually pull it. All right? There was an instance where an active shooter was waiting for kids because they pulled the alarm knowing that they would evacuate. That's why alert and inform is so important. If you initially get the call that there's an active shooter in your facility, and then you hear the fire alarm go off, the chances of a fire may be pretty good. With Columbine, they were setting bombs up right throughout the school. That's why it's important to obtain as much information as you can, as quick as you can, and act on it. Use your OODA loop to keep going. A police officer doesn't like to be caught between a rock and a hard place, so I can't really answer that because I don't want to tell you, if you're locked down and a fire alarm goes off, stay in place if it's not safe to evacuate, and you burn out to a fire. All right? You have to act on everything. My initial gut is that they'll probably pull it to cause more panic and chaos. All right? And you have to act on your best decisions related to an active shooter on the premises.
Would that mess up their little loop though with the alarms going off and?
It might not. They might not have readily thought that would happen, you know? Or they would think that's what I was gonna do next. Or, you know, they're so driven on what they're doing, you know, that it's not gonna affect them much. But what I will tell you,
Targets the bomber too.
well, and it might. And that's what we do worry about at times. And that's why there's nothing that we can, with Alice or in law enforcement in general, because every situation's so different and it's so fluid, that we can't say, yeah, that's the best thing to do. Or no, that's, you know what I mean? It's contingent on what's presented to you. You know, that's why it's important as potential victims. These people see you guys as victims, as dead bodies. And that's how they see it. And that's why whenever you pose a threat or a stimulus to them that they're not ready for, it screws their OODA loop up. Okay? And it really will. Now, counter, like I said, I'm kind of really got ahead of myself when we just start talking. This kind of got me nervous when I went to the school board, because the first thing I didn't really like about Alice was the counterpart. I says, how can I expect any of our school students to counter an active gunman? Really? And then I thought, you know what? And then I was trained on it and said, you know what? That's not at all what they want. Counter means that if you have no other option but to fight your way out to survival, then you do it. Okay? This is something that gets me real nervous when I talk to the public. But there's good reason for that. Number one, we have other innocent people around us that we don't want to take down along with them. Okay? Number two, the perpetrator knows what he wants to do. All right? They know they're out. We don't. Okay? I want to make sure that I'm not shooting at that person and there's an innocent person behind him that I could take out. There's so many different variables. All right? The bottom line is, the reason why we miss so much is because we want to do the right thing. We're constantly trying to think about doing the right thing. All right? And the bad guy is constantly moving. Right? He's a hard target to hit. The reason why, I don't have it up here, but I think I'm going to edit this and put it up here. You know, an active shooter's percentage is really high. It's 100%. Especially in the years back. The reason why? Because it's not real hard to go up to someone sitting in the corner and shoot him in the head, right? Chow at Virginia Tech, he rented shooting ranges. And he requested no one else go there. He put targets on the ground in people's faces to practice shooting people laying on the ground. Because he was left-handed, he wanted to be proficient in his right, and he wanted to make every shot count because he knew, remember, time is of the essence. He had to kill as many people as he could in a short amount of time. Right? And he knew they weren't going to resist him. He knew the standard operating procedure was locking down and waiting for help, and he was not expecting any resistance at all. So he walked down, boom, 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 and you know what? That's what he did. They interviewed a girl who was shot 4 times. She survived. She was sitting in the classroom. As he walked up, those people actually weren't on the ground. They were sitting in their chairs, and he was bang, bang, bang. The girl who survived, got shot 4 times, witnessed all her classmates getting shot in the head. She got shot and by the grace of God flinched and got shot in the shoulder or something and got shot in the chest again, but it wasn't a fatal shot. Went down, played dead. Joe went into another room. We believe it was whenever the professor was killed and caused a barricade in that room. Came back inside to finish off people, walked past her, and she said she don't know why she did it, but she did. She opened her eyes to see what was going on. He stopped, took a step back, and bang, bang. Didn't kill her, missed her head again. But she said she could not explain why she didn't run, fight, or anything else. That she stood there, she knew what was going to happen to her, but she froze in the moment because she never considered it was going to happen to her. We need to think, what if it does? It's a morbid, terrible thought, but we have to think, what if we're faced with something like that? Guys, I'm not going down without a fight. I might get shot to death, but you know what? I'm going to hurt him in the process, or I'm going to let him know he was in a fight. But the chances of me sustaining a fatal wound in the process of being crazy and combative to him are pretty slim. You'll be surprised how many people can sustain a gunshot wound. Most police officers die to gunshot wounds because their adrenaline's pumping so much they pump all the blood out of their body. But if they know that, the ones that survive know that, and they take the proper breaths, and they know, I can survive this. Their mental map tells them that they can survive it. Not all of them, guys. You know, you get shot in the head or the heart, whatever, or a vital organ, you're going to die. All right? I'll take the chance, though, right? I'm not going to sit in the corner and wait for them to put one in my head. All right? If you're running around, these guys are not well trained. If you're running around and posing a hard target for them, the chances of them hitting you with a fatal shot are slim. All right? So, counter is an option. You might not think, I said earlier, just because a guy brings a gun to the fight doesn't mean we're out of the fight. All right? I explained it to you before. Remember the scenarios when I walked in and the tennis balls were being thrown at me. I can tell you from experience, it dramatically cuts down on your effectiveness. It really does. All right? We should do the same thing with these people. All right? And that's why a lot of times officers only, they miss 80% of their targets because there's so much confusion, chaos, and we're not Superman. It cracks me up, these movies. I love The Walking Dead, that show. It kills me whenever, Rick, boom, in the head. Boom. It's not that easy, guys. It's not. We use an example in different trainings, and I won't get into it much now, but if someone stands here, the target's this big. Boom. Now move them to the center of the room, the target's this big. Now move them to that door, the target's this big. And I can tell you, who here has experienced shooting a weapon? And you know how just a trigger pull alone can change the effectiveness of shooting a gun. If I squeeze the trigger too much, even from here to that door, and I pull my wrist like this, that might be the difference between me shooting them here and a shot going this way. Believe me. And if you're running, causing all kinds of chaos and confusion for that active shooter, and throwing chairs, especially in numbers that you have, how can you not win? I'm not saying somebody might not get hurt, guys, all right, but maybe not a fatal shot. It sounds crazy. It sounds, but it's the truth. All right? We train as police officers to maintain certain aspects of safe shooting and accurate shooting. Proper breathing, proper stance. And any one of those go amiss and you miss your shot. It's the same thing with active shooters. Okay? Worse, because they're not trained. All right? Now, if you lock down and you barricade, all right, if you now decide that it's safe to evacuate and you're going to do that, or you haven't maybe sustained an effective barricade, but you say now it's time to, I think it's safe to evacuate. Maybe somebody on the other side of the building say, he's worked his way onto the west wing of the building, and you're on the east wing, and there's an exit there. Grab something that you can use as a weapon. All right? Now, I'm not talking about grabbing this chair and jogging your ass down the hall to the chair, because it's going to impede your ability to get out of there quicker. What I'm talking about, I use an example like Maybe it could be this. Doesn't look like much of a weapon, but number one, this is a weapon,
Depends.
all right? Not just that, we have something, did anybody ever hear of something called a distractionary weapon? A distractionary weapon, and I'll use this analogy because I'm a cop, a bag of donuts. All right? I tell the kids in school, if you feel as though you can evacuate, take something with you. Because what happens, the school's big, you know? What happens if you work your way down the second floor to go, and all of a sudden, you turn the corner and there's the active shooter? If you have, I tell the kids, I used one last year, it was a box of plastic rollers that if you slap someone, they'll probably break it, right? It wouldn't do anybody any harm. However, if you have a box of them, or if you have this and you turn around the corner and you throw this at him, it's your natural reaction to flinch. Maybe that'll be enough for him to flinch and enough time for you to turn and go the other way. Or maybe he's going to flinch and he's going to slip and fall to the ground, right? It's called a distractionary weapon. It could be used and might save your life. It could be a box of donuts. Throw 10 dozen of donuts at me, it's not going to hurt me, right? But it could be a distraction. The tennis balls didn't hurt me, but it was a hell of a distraction, all right? So use anything to maintain the possibility of further enhancing your ability to survive anything like this. All right? I know it sounds crazy. We always think, hopefully it'll never happen here. But when you go to trainings as much as I do and speak with people that are first responders to these shootings, you know it's real. All right? And it can happen. All right? And if Mrs. Nilsson would have only been told, like I said before, to evacuate, and that's an option, she would have done it. If those little kids, those 6 little kids, that one 6-year-old wouldn't have told his buddies to leave because that was his natural reaction to fear, he saved his life and 5 other students, you know. And all we need to do is have that in our mental map that it's not an impossibility, you know. There's underdogs in sports, right? If an underdog's playing and they are 10-to-1 odds that they're gonna lose, then why the hell do they get dressed and even go out there, right? They're gonna go play the game. And there's a lot of times those underdogs win, all right? There's a reason why you play the game. Active shooter scenarios, I know it's not a game, but it's life and death, which the stakes obviously are much higher. So why not use anything and everything you can to further enhance your safety? And because it works, especially in a group, guys, which kind of brings me to the next thing I want to talk about, all right? If you're in a group somewhere, and it might even be 2 or 3 of you, all right? And someone, say, breaks down a barricade, or you happen to not be in a situation where you're able to barricade a room, and you're confronted. I tell these kids at the school, you know, I have nieces, and I only have 2 of them. When I walk in, they get excited when I don't see them. And they're little ones. But when they come in and one of them grabs on my leg and the other one grabs my arm and shoulder, it's not the easiest thing to keep walking in the house. So if you can imagine somebody going after this leg, another guy going after this leg, this person going after this arm, going after a head, torso, high and low, there's power in numbers. They're not Superman, all right? And maybe if you continue to use that chaos and use that, you might take a shot in the shoulder or the arm, but you can quickly incapacitate him and stop what's going on. All right? And especially if you have, you know, if you're in here, man, I'd barricade that door. If you happen to get in here, have all these chairs, like I said, this would hurt like hell if you had this thing at you. Let alone 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them. All right? You mean to tell me he's going to get good shots off? No. So working together is very important. If you happen to have to lock down and you're with a bunch of people, have a plan. Right? Like I said, have that plan that if he comes in here, we're going to attack the hell out of this guy. And you know, one of the best case scenarios, if you barricade this door and he's hell bent to get to one of you, all right, and he's busting down this barricade, wouldn't you feel helpless if you're sitting in the corner watching him struggle like hell to bust this barricade down? And maybe he had to put his weapon down his pants, or maybe he has it in one hand and he's busting down a barricade. Wouldn't that be a great opportunity for you guys to swarm and beat the hell out of this scumbag? Right? He's not Superman. That's a great opportunity. So if he's gonna try to work, I tell the kids the same thing. I had a girl, now obviously won't say any names, but it totally flipped me out. She's a senior. And I told her, you know, use anything as a weapon. You know, or I told the whole class, use something as a weapon. You know, if you see a pair of scissors, do what you need to do. It sounds morbid and terrible, but you know, what's the alternative, right? You know, she said, she raised her hand, she goes, Officer Moses, I'm not gonna have a murder conviction on my record. I'm going to Harvard. She was dead serious. I go, what, excuse me? We got this big dilemma. All the students were like, and it got me upset because I don't want other students thinking that there was any validity to it. But this girl was one of those girls that's very smart book-wise, but zero common sense. And I said, wait, I said, do you know what self-defense means? Well, I don't care, but you know, my parents always tell me don't use violence for anything. And I said, I'm not advocating violence. But if someone is there to take lives, you need to do what you need to do. And it seems very, very morbid. And I tell the kids, you know, in schools there's scissors and stuff. And I said, if they're breaking down that barricade, and you have to rush that guy with the group, and you have to throw those scissors into him, you have to do it, because the alternative is much worse. You know, we don't ever like to think that way. I'm not a violent guy. I don't think violence solves everything. But when it comes to something like this, you have to do what you need to do for your survival. Because these people, what did I say earlier? They're looking for a high death rate, right, count, and they're going to try to do it quickly, and they don't care. They know they're going to die today, and they're going to try to take as many people with them as they can. Right? And it's a tough thing to think about, but you know, I guess I'm passionate. Like again, I tell you about it because I go to these trainings and I know how real it can be, and it bothers me. All right, so this is an incident, and there's nothing bad about it. This guy was pissed off at his boss, his former boss. Now, and I'll be honest with you, I kind of lost track. I can't remember if this is the one. I don't think it is, but there was another similar incident where a guy busted into the foyer, shot 2 secretaries dead, and then went to hunt down his former boss. And on the way there were various offices on the way there. His mental map was so warped that all he can think about was killing his boss and never thought about the other people in the building, which is very rare for active shooter scenarios, okay? But thank God that's what happened here. And you're going to see, once he gets into the building and he goes down the hallway, there are people that use the swarming method. Once he shot the dude, again, I can't remember if this, because they don't show that footage here, but there's another one that was very similar to this. And from the looks of this one, I played it earlier this morning, I don't think this is the one that went behind the desk and killed them. But this one, I think he's tried to go straight to his former boss. But you'll see that there are people, and they were older guys too. They swarmed this guy, never got a shot off, okay? And one of the reasons why is because when one of the guys went to rush him and swarm him, along with the other ones, the guy was in such a panic, his OODA loop, his mental map was so skewed now because someone was actually a threat to him, he forgot to take the safety off of the shotgun. Okay, so you'll see here if I can play it. I don't know if I can play it. I might just go to the next, oh, you know what, maybe I can do this. Yeah, you see him in there, he gets a lamp shade and busts out a window. And he grabs a bag of knives and guns. Now, like I said, I can't remember if this is the one where he goes around and kills them or not, but there's another one that was similar to this one. But you'll see these guys, they just start swarming them. So what's the alternative? If those guys hid inside of their office, maybe saw them getting outdoors on it. Are they going to wait till their boss gets shot in the head, and then I guarantee on his way out, he probably would have taken people out. He didn't get a shot off in that hallway. It's kind of comical because you see guys taking pictures with their phone and jumping on. You'll see a guy that kind of. If you guys ever experience this, don't let him up. I don't care how much he pleads and begs you, don't let him up.
Jump on them, there you go.
You'll see another guy, he's giving them the business right there. He was,
Yeah, he's just keep punching them, see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care what he says, you don't. And I guarantee you, in a community like ours, the police are gonna get there really, really quick. So you won't be in that position too long.
Look, he keeps sending back, this guy. He gets off and then he comes back, he gives him a shot, and he walks.
But if they would've had that same mentality that, uh-oh, we're screwed, we're not in this fight, give up, or hide and hope you don't hear me, maybe the majority of these guys would've been dead. You know, but they acted, they had an idea. My guess, from what I see here, they probably planned and had something like, hey, if something ever happens in this office, we act together. All right. So this brings us to evacuate. Obviously, we kind of went over that already. We do not want you guys to evacuate unless it's safe to do so. All right? What we worry about, and that's why the I analysis is very important. Only do it if you have enough information. If you're uncertain, then stay locked down and barricaded. Because we don't want you to walk into the path of the shooter. All right? This is the optimum outcome. This is what we want. If God forbid something would happen, I hope every one of you are able to evacuate the building to safety. All right? That's what we want. To do it when you know you can do it safely. All right, that's what information. Now, this is a one-story building, right? We don't have a second floor. You might get another job or be somewhere where there's 2 stories. Did anybody realize that there's a proper way of jumping out of a window?
Keep hanging down.
Yeah.
Hang down my
Yeah.
window.
I'm what, 5'9"? If I have my arms out, I'm probably 6 something. That's 6 feet that I've alleviated from my drop. Okay, so if you hang from a windowsill instead of jump out of a windowsill, that could be the difference between 2 broken ankles, you know. Also, does anybody know how to properly break a window? See, you know.
Well, you break it and then you clear around the seal.
Yeah. Well, you see on TV, right? These people get their chairs and smash it out. You know what the strongest part of a window is? You need to break out a window wherever you're at. Do it in the corners. Okay? Make sure you do it in the corners. Preferably maybe an upper corner. If you do it down here and start breaking it, have a large pane of glass come down on you, that might not be an option though. I'd rather be cut up by a pane of glass and go and survive. And once you do it, whatever you use, that blunt object that you use to break the window, just try to, in your right, try to get the shards out, because there's others that might be jumping through, you know, hopefully hanging through that to get to safety. All right?
No, this is strongest, the corner you need.
Yeah, the window, the middle of the window is the strongest part because it's plywood. I did one of these earlier today, and they had a huge window in the room I was doing it, and it was such a great opportunity because I was able to show them. But the window was really big, and when I did this, you can see the window bowing. And whenever I went down here, it didn't move. You know, it's the strongest part of the window down here, so whenever you shatter it, or the strongest part is in the middle, it's so pliable. Down here, it's, you know, that's why if you stretch like saran wrap or something, and you try to poke the middle, it's gonna stretch, you do it where closest to your hand and have someone do it, it's gonna pop right through. That's the truth about a window, that's how you break a window up. Hopefully we don't have to ever worry about that. That's the last case scenario outside of countering somebody. But I'd gladly jump from a window and break an ankle or 2 than to get shot. We're going to talk about, let's see here. You've probably never gave it the thought of possibly if you are on the 2nd floor, again, we don't have a 2nd floor here, but you might be at a school or some other function. If there's an extension cord, use it as a rappelling room. Right? You might have a group of people that are upstairs on a 2nd floor somewhere, and you hear carnage going on downstairs, knowing there's an active shooter, and you know that there's only one exit, and that exit is going to bring you right in the path, and you have no other option, and you've already barricaded the door, but you want to get the hell out of there. You guys devise a plan. There's an extension cord, it's tied on to something, and let's get out of here. It's possible.
Even if it's a 6-foot extension cord, it's 6 foot lower.
That's right.
Plus your body.
Yep. it's amazing how strong willpower is and what we can do. And that's the biggest thing I've learned from getting trained with regards to active shooter scenarios and how we can easily turn the tables on somebody. Now, yeah, every now and then you hear about shootings from like an ex-sniper or something. Those are very, very rare. It's usually people that are trained at all and have very limited amount of experience with a handgun. And it could be easily overcome if we have it right here, guys, and be prepared for it. If we don't, if we do what my wife originally said, is, oh, I don't even want to think about it, then if that time ever comes, you are going to freeze and you might become a victim. She's changed her way of thinking since then. Obviously, I hope. I know she has, you know. But too many of us in society feel that way now. Those people in Orlando at that club, for the life of me, I cannot understand how that guy was able to do what he did. Because in an atmosphere like that, he sure in hell had people to his back. They just didn't have it in here in a mental map to say, you know what, if I see an active shooter and I see especially his back to me, he's going down. That's such an opportunity. Whether you grab a fire extinguisher, a chair, a pen out of your pocket, whatever you have, a shoe, a purse, and uses it as a weapon. Surprise is the biggest weapon. And it's just the idea that they were met with such panic, were overcome with such stress that they guarantee they froze. The best scenario, even with some of the victims, was that they maybe tried to evacuate, but I guarantee you nobody countered this guy, and that could have been, strangely enough, as odd as it sounds, that could have been the major determining factor of stopping this guy.
They could have thrown drinks at him.
Anything. You know, you mean to tell me there's no implements in that area that could have been used as an improvised weapon? Yes, there could have been.
Lots of class.
You know, but maybe they were never sitting here like we are. You know, maybe a bouncer who wasn't drinking, maybe someone that was drinking a hot latte, somebody that was drinking something, and maybe you're in your office when something happens, you're confronted and you have a hot coffee in your hand. Do you ever think of that as a weapon? You know? Yeah. But my idea about using your mental map is don't just do that and stand there. Do that and move away. Think of what would I do? That can save your life. You know? It really could. It's helped me on my job many times. I'm not a big guy. I don't claim to be a badass. I wrestled and took karate most of my life. All right? If I need to get close to someone, I can get them to the ground. And it's become such commonplace, I don't have to think about it. If I have to think about it, I'm in trouble. And I don't want you guys to sit and harp and stress about it, you know, put undue stress on your minds and, oh, this is going to happen. But every now and then, if you've got a spare time in your office and you're sitting there and thinking, you know, what if something would happen where there's a threat outside that, my office right there, or in that hallway, or in the front, you know, who would I call? What would I do? Is there anything in here I would use as a weapon? I can't speak for your company's policy, but if I had my own office in a workplace, I'd have, now I'm lucky obviously because I'm a policeman. I have the ultimate weapon in my opinion. But if I wasn't allowed to do that at a workplace, I would find something that in the event somebody confronted me in my office, and it was a life and death situation, I can defend myself. Wasp spray, a hammer, a bat. Just don't place them out for anybody to see or to get, but strategically in your office space, have things there in the event that you have something to go to. You know, wasp spray, some of them can spray how far? So what if you were able to barricade with even yourself or a group of people and you can barely barricade, and it got to the point where he got close enough to your room that you could no longer barricade, so you got in a corner and you looked at things that you can use for a weapon and you remembered your spray, so you have your spray. I have this. It's not real strong, but I tell you what, if I go at him with it, as soon as he pops his head around that corner, I know what I would do. I would think, okay, if he's hell-bent to get in here, he's gonna get in here anyways, how can I use that to my advantage? So I would use something, I would get maybe closer. to that.
Lysol spray.
Maybe get closer, I would use that wasp spray, and I would say as soon as you can set it in, shh, and as soon as he, it's a natural reaction, boom, it's a
No.
pencil in his ear or something. I know it's something we don't like to hear, guys, you know, or a chair being thrown out, whatever. Don't wait. That's my point. Okay? Now, we went over this before. If there's a situation, guys, here, and you have to evacuate, please promise me that you're not going to go to your car and drive away. All right? Go to Burger King and have a cheeseburger. All right? Don't get in your car, because guess what? The cavalry's coming. If we have an active shooter here, we're going to have everybody in the county who has a badge coming here. In our department, I take a lot of pride in. We have a great police department. Our response time is so small, short. If something like that would happen, you might have had situations where you might have needed a police officer in Hermitage, and given a certain circumstance or priority of calls, it was maybe longer than you think. However, I will guarantee you that if we ever have an active shooter in the city of Hermitage, we will get there way less than a minute, probably less than 30 seconds. Okay? What we don't need is to have nothing but congestion from you guys in your cars leaving when we're trying to get in. Okay? You can get back to your cars later. Stay on your feet, run as far away from the building as you can. All right? Just go. Don't get in your cars. There's going to be police, fire, EMS, and there's not going to be enough room for them to get in here without you guys leaving. Okay? So that is not an option. That's a huge concern of mine at the school with any type of problem there, even if it's not an active shooter, maybe a chemical spill or whatever it is. That these kids say, you know what, screw you, Officer Moses and Dr. Gill, I'm going home. My dad said it, and my mom said, just get in your car and leave. And before you know it, everybody says that, and all the exits and entrances are jam-packed, and we need to get police, fire, and emergency vehicles in, and we can't do it. We have a fire at the school or a car fire or something and everybody thinks they want to leave, how are we going to get a fire truck in there? So just keep that in mind, all right? And the further away on foot, active shooter scenarios, the guy's not going to follow you. There was one that they caught him outside as of late, but a large percentage, not over 98%, close to 99% of all active shooter scenarios involve one person, okay? Now, we are increasing our threat level with regards to terrorism. But that's a different situation we're talking about. There's really no reason for a terrorist to come here to exact an act of terrorism on you. What would happen here is a disgruntled ex-employee or ex-client or somebody acting alone to do it. Usually people that want to go to, usually workplace violence, you can't get someone else to be as crazy as you at that particular time to go and do that. You know, Columbine was kind of the exception to that. There was another one, but usually over 98% are perpetrated by one shooter. Remember, Alice does not follow a set of actions that you must or that you have to follow. All right, you don't have to, well, you're always going to be alerted. That's why you're going to take action, right? So A is always going to be there. You don't always have to, obviously, confront them, right? Or you don't always have to evacuate if it's not safe to do so. Or you don't always have to lock down if there's an exit door there, you know? I mean, like I said earlier, teachers are the worst at following rules to a good way, kind of, with this exception. I swear to God, if there was an active shooter that was down the hall and there's an exit door 5 feet away and there is a classroom door 50 feet away and his shoes untied, they're going to tell you to run to that classroom, but make sure your shoes tied first. You know what I mean? That posed a major problem before, because it did not enable people to use their natural reactions to danger. And now this is all Alice is telling you to do. But to do it with the proper information, if it's safe to do so, you might not have to use any of the acronyms except for E. If you're standing by an exit door and you hear shots, use it. I would ask you to try to do whatever you can in the process of evacuating to inform as many people as you can. And I don't mean running back and saying, hey, there's an active shooter. Get the hell away and use your phone. Try to inform people that way that this is what's going on. All right? Also, there's been people that ask me, what happens if, I'll give you a scenario. What happens if this guy, you guys, I'll use the one I used before. Say you are in lockdown and you partially barricaded the door and the guy's breaking through the door. And what's your name? Joe. Joe gets a chair and he wings it at him. And he knocks the guy down and the guy's weapon falls to the ground. That's what we would want, grab him. However, I've had people say, what do we do with the gun? Right. Now, I'm going to initially tell you what Alice suggests. Then I'm going to tell you your options. I'm being filmed. All right. This is the deal. This is what we tell, especially in the schools. Not everybody is familiar with weapons or know how they work properly. Right? In the schools, the last thing we want, obviously, is if a situation like that would happen, would be to have a student pick the weapon up and hurt another student or himself because he fiddled with the gun. So what we tell them, if that's a situation, you knock the gun out of his hands, say you're by yourself. Well, we'll get to that next. Say you're in a room with a couple people. You do that, knocks the gun down. What are you going to do? Swarm him, right? Everybody's going to swarm him, all right? What if in the process of you swarming him, he goes and falls to the ground and he has access to the gun, right? So we have to do something with the gun. So what we tell the kids at the school is this, and it's the same with you guys. What you want to do is you never want to touch it. The biggest reason is I'm going to follow up with. But what I tell them to do is get with your foot all the way across the room. Somewhere in the room there's a trash can. I don't care how stinky or how smelly that trash can is. You empty all the contents onto the floor, and then you put that garbage can on top, upside down, on the gun, and you sit on that until law enforcement gets there. And the rest of the class is beating the hell out of them, right? Or swarming them, okay? Now, let's turn that scenario around. All of a sudden, Joe's in a room, whether he has someone in the room with him or not, but he does that. And in the process of Joe running over there, the gun's over there, Joe's basically running to the guy, or whatever the case may be, and all of a sudden this guy, you see him, he's reaching for another gun, right? Yeah. And Joe's left helpless. However, there's a gun sitting there that he could use to defend himself. Sticky situation, maybe for a lot. For me, myself, it's not. I would hike my ass to that gun and put a couple right in his head, okay? And that's what I tell you basically to do. However, are you going to stand there with the weapon in your hand? No. Picture this scenario. Joe's standing there, the guy's laying down, and you three are on top of him, and he's struggling, and Joe's standing there and says, you move, I'm going to shoot you. In the meantime, Officer Moses is flying to the scene.
The gun.
Doesn't know who the shooter is, comes in and sees Joe.
Right.
How do I know Joe's the shooter or not?
Right, you don't.
I don't. Okay?
Unless somebody else don't
So,
shoot.
no. How do I know that there's not two? Even though I said over 98% of active shooters involve one person, I am not going to believe that.
Right.
A police officer's rule of thumb, if there's one, there's two.
Right.
That's the way we look at it. Okay? Until we know better. Okay? Knowing, I've studied this, active shooters, knowing that a large percentage involves one shooter, I still got to think that there's two. I am not going to be comfortable walking into a room where there's an active shooter event and someone's holding a gun.
Right.
So, what I'm telling you, I'm gonna back up a little bit with the school, and I tell the kids, don't ever touch that gun for several different reasons. Joe might be very, very good with guns and know what he's doing. He might own that same gun at home, right? But what I tell the kids at school is most of them don't, so don't ever touch it for their safety, plus because of the biggest reason what I told you. I'll give you a scenario here. If that is what you need to do to survive, when you have eliminated the threat, put the gun down. All right? Or if you have enough people to swarm him and subdue him, that gun is not even a consideration. But get it away from him. Because the possibility that he fights and struggles and wiggles his way to where that gun is and grabs a hold of it again, there might be the possibility. So that's why we say, even in this, even with adults in an environment such as this, get it to the opposite side of the room with your foot. And if you don't have a trash can, just put a chair on top of it, not the legs, but just put it on top of it and you stand guard, you sit there until the police come. And let those people make sure that they swarmed him and stay on him. Okay? And whenever the police get there, you make sure your hands are up and say, that's the shooter, there's the weapon, and we'll figure it out. We will figure it out. What I don't want you guys to do, and I want you to understand, I know there's a lot of bashing of police officers in society now. What I will tell you is, I truly have a strong desire to treat people like they want to be treated as a police officer. I want to do that. I want to prove to my community that we are here to help you. We're good people, okay? I will tell you, in this situation, all right, such as that, where lives depend on my actions and reactions, don't take offense to you being yelled at, screamed at, and treated like a criminal for a second, for a minute, until it's under control, because you probably will be, and don't take exception to that, because we won't know who the shooter is, guys, until we know who it is, and you might get a lot of apologies later on. But if I walk into the room, and you might be so glad to see me, or any officer, a woman might want to come and just give me a hug, I'm going to say, get away, get on the ground. And that's the way it is. Don't take exception to it. Understand that we're doing that for everybody's protection, because we don't know until that situation, until the scene is secure, we're not going to know what's going on. It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be nuts. There's possibilities. What if there's a shooter comes in here? He shot already a bunch of people, and he knows all of a sudden the police are here. And this is vague, but I'm just going to use it. I'm just going to throw it out there. And all of a sudden, because I go through these kind of scenarios, all of a sudden he has second thoughts about killing himself. He's like, oh, geez, oh, man. All of a sudden he says, don't you, any one of you tell them that I'm the shooter. I'm going to put one in your head right now. And he sits with you guys and puts his gun underneath his lap. And he's trying to assimilate with you guys, right? The bet, whenever the police come in, one or all of you saying, there he is, that's him, are pretty good. But the thing is we all seen how long these situations take to unfold, right? And people always wonder, what's going on? It's because the police have to, it's tedious work. We have to make sure there's no other threats in the building, no bombs, no other weapons that were used, no other fatalities or injuries or anything that has to do with the investigation. Or if there was acting, maybe the other person, maybe there was information from a police officer that was that an officer obtained that he was working with another employee, and that employee chickened out, and here's more information that he can give, and that we have to make sure we isolate that person from the shooter who's no longer with us, or maybe in custody or whatever. There's a lot to be done after the fact. And I just want you guys to understand, don't take exception if it's very harsh. I guarantee you, what we do is we have, in a way, blinders. We don't want tunnel vision, but we have to act as though there is a threat everywhere, and until we are proven otherwise, that's how we act. And that means searching you. And once you're cleared, then you're removed. Once you're cleared, you're removed. I don't care age, race, it doesn't matter. All right? You can be old, you can be young, it doesn't matter. All right? So that's the way it's going to unfold. All right? So when you're there, when you're in a situation where the police enter a room, you need to make sure your hands are up and your fingers are spread and that you do not have a weapon on you. earlier I said to make sure that if you do decide to evacuate, I tell the kids at the school, and I'm telling you, look for things you can use as weapons, you know? This is a great weapon. You can fling it, it's heavy, you can use it as a blunt object. What's it look like? Well, without the tape on, what's it look like? The barrel of a gun.
Yeah, right.
Okay? If I'm one of you guys and I'm running out of the building and I'm a police officer, I'm casing everything I'm looking at, I gotta make sure it's not a threat. An active shooter scenario is gonna be chaotic and crazy. I round the corner as a police officer and I'm looking at a threat and I see something, how do I know that's not a gun? And right away I might not. And if that person comes up like, Officer Moses, I'm glad to see you. Unfortunately, I would probably put a bullet in you. Because I have been trained, and if the minute I see the barrel of a gun,
Yeah,
if it's coming towards me, right here is a threat. Right here is a threat. You know? That threat continues to escalate as it goes like this. Okay? I would hope in my training I would be able to detect that. You know, but we don't know. We're human too. All right? And when we want to save lives, and there's already been lives lost, we're not going to know for sure. So my advice to you is when you encounter a police officer, no matter what you have in your hands that you improvise as a weapon, drop it immediately and open up your fingers like this. Show the officer you're not a threat. He'll probably still treat you like one. He'll tell you to get on the ground or might escort you out of the building or whatever, but listen to what he tells you. Don't say, why do you treat me like a criminal? It's not me, he's in the building. Just, okay, understand, this is part of the gig. And I'll have plenty of time to prove to him that I'm not the shooter. All right? So just promise me that. So, basically, that's all I have about Alice. Okay, we kind of went through all this stuff. See, I don't really follow my PowerPoints because I just start talking because and I go through and I'm redundant. So I apologize for that. I'm not a teacher. Thing is, remember, guys, we're not helpless. It kills me to see these acts of violence on TV. Whenever I watch news and come home and see this and think that something could have been done, but people don't give themselves enough credit and don't realize just how strong they are. And if you just use a little bit of your mind. No, we're not Wonder Woman with bracelets on and can deflect bullets. All right? But if you act appropriately at the right time, especially in numbers, it's amazing what you can do. And the start of that is working together, knowing that you have to make sound, good decisions based on the information that you're getting. And together, you have to ensure that your fellow worker, whether you like them or not, their life might depend on you, or vice versa. All right? And it can really make a big difference. Okay. Now, a little kid that was 6 years old that decided to get his friends and say run, probably never really knew the impact that he had when he said run. You know? He's probably running, he was probably scared to death. Thinking, oh my God, I'm doing the wrong thing. He saved his life and 5 of his classmates. He's a hero. Okay? So, when we put it in our perspective and realize that we can do it, that we don't have to be helpless victims, don't put yourself in that situation. Get yourself out of the fog once in a while, maybe. Maybe if there's a situation, say, wait a minute. Patricia Nelson might have been, if she was sitting in this classroom, might have said, wait a minute, I'm stunned, but wait, oh, remember, we can evacuate, get out of the door, or get out of the exit here. That's all it might take. Just realizing that we're not helpless. So, any questions about Alice at all?
I just have a question, a scenario. Like, what if Connie and I were in an office and the shooter came in and she whacked him in the head with the big stapler we have in her office, and he kind of like falls and passes out, and the gun falls, and then he's passed out, and there's an exit right there. Why wouldn't we take the gun and run out the exit? Why would we, like, I know we're not supposed to touch the gun, but why would we do
So
that?
I understand that, and that's, like I said, at the onset of that, I can tell you what Alice says, but at the same time, nothing is foolproof, and this is just basically, for a lack of better words, maybe just common sense
Yeah.
to say, wait a minute, I gotta get this weapon away from this guy, because there's a possibility he might come to within 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and maybe 5 seconds. And there's the threat, get rid of it. Do something with it. possibly, don't tote it around with you.
No.
You might have the opportunity maybe to get, don't let him see what you do with it, you know, obviously if there's a police officer coming down and you see that, this is all very easy to talk about when we're sitting there, right? But we don't know how we're gonna react. However, just like I said earlier about Patricia Milson, us sitting there talking about it, in a moment when you might freeze or have tunnel vision, it might, you'll be surprised how your mind will touch a nerve that you've heard before, okay? And maybe that simple thing where, maybe if you look up and you see law enforcement coming down the hall, you're damn skippy, you better not pick that weapon up, right? Okay, you're gonna have to take your chances to get out, show them your hands and say, the weapon's in the room right there, or whatever. As opposed to, you know, help isn't readily available for maybe 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, who knows? And you know you have time and you can do it safely, if you can, but don't tote around with it, you know what I mean? Do something with it. You know, I know what I would do, but I don't know if it's the right thing to say in class here.
Well, if
You know, I mean, as a citizen, as if I wasn't a police officer, but it's not easy to do for all. You know what I mean?
I was gonna
But I
say,
would
yeah,
try to
we
eliminate-
killed When I've come some of our coworkers, when we knew he killed them, and it'd be awful hard for, I don't know, because I'm not
What's your name again?
Diane.
Diane said, keep your thought, but I want to touch on this. Diane says, whether I can see if he killed my coworkers, I want you guys to realize, if someone brings a gun to this place, you might as well figure he's already killed somebody. Why is he bringing it there, Diane? Don't give him the opportunity to. If he's that much of an ass to bring, to perpetrate such a heinous crime or threat to you, he might as well have killed somebody already. Don't wait. That's my point. Don't say, well, okay, if he already, you know what? If he produced it, figure that he's going to use it.
Right, but if I knew he killed a couple of my coworkers, then I had to grab that gun, and I don't know. It'd be hard. It'd be hard not to.
Yeah.
But you never know. It'd be hard not to shoot him. But you never know what it's going to be till you're not.
Right. The thing is,
I'm just saying.
and we're not going to know, but the biggest thing is what you have to maintain in your mental map is what is the safest thing for myself immediately and for the people around me. Simple as that. And if you do leave with the weapon at his side and he comes to again, he can shoot somebody else. So in my opinion, my advice was to try to get rid of that weapon as quick as you can. Get it out of his vicinity so he can't grab it. But again, that's one of those things we can talk what ifs all day long. There might not be one great answer for any one of them. You know what I mean? Yep. Anything else? Did it help at all, guys? I mean, honestly, because sometimes, the thing is, sometimes it seems so simple. You know what I mean? Sometimes it seems like, oh man, what's he talking? Of course you get alert, you know, to it. You inform others, and you counter if you have to, and evacuate. But it really, like I said before, if it was that simple, then why hasn't it been done in these past shootings? You know, and the answer to that is because as simple as it sounds, if you don't have a mental map of it or rehearse it in your mind, you will freeze. You will. Okay? You know, there's a reason why when a car is coming our way, we jump out of the way if it's going to hit us. Our body's been conditioned to do that. Our body hasn't been conditioned to think, what do I do if I'm confronted with an armed gunman in my place of employment? And again, like I said before, as much as I don't want you guys to belabor it, it needs to be considered. And you need to have some type of plan. And the plan might not be foolproof. The plan isn't a plan of saying, I'm going to exit that door if there's an active shooter, because maybe this active shooter is between you and that door. But the plan is act. I'm going to do something. All right? And that starts with informing, being informed, and making sound decisions. I hope it helped out. Okay, guys? Mm-hmm. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I didn't
And I think we have to make this like you outlined it. Like, there's a lot of.
Oh, yeah.
I know if you're that kind of person.
Yeah, we got an idea.
Just like my.